Hey guys, today I want to talk about Maiev, particularly why the pros play Maiev. To start off, I want to explain a little bit of when Maiev first released, she was extremely overpowered, sitting at above 55% win rate on hotslogs.com. After the course of about 4 or 5 balance patches, Maiev has been nerfed down to the point where on hotslogs she sits around 45%. So, it may seem strange to some people why she has such a low win rate on hotslogs, yet is still being picked quite a bit in pro play, and she's still being used very effectively in pro play. So I really want to focus mainly on why the pros are picking her, and why she actually is a really strong character still, even after all of these balance changes. To start off, I want to show that her popularity is still extremely high, her win percentage is still extremely high in pro play, and all this information can be found on masterleague.net. But it's really interesting. To start out, I want to explain a little bit about her builds and the builds that they're currently going. Now, a lot of this information right here is not up to date to the last few tournaments, but so the win percentages may be a little bit differently and the popularity may be a little bit differently. The old build is this first one that we see, which is the Naisha's Memento, which makes it to where whenever you can activate this, and it makes it to where your basic primary attacks bounce between nearby enemies. So you auto attack and it hits multiple enemies. This is reset by hitting 2 people with Fan of Knives. Then Blade Dance level 4 makes it to where you do physical damage with your Fan of Knives. And when it originally came out, Nyasha's Memento would also bounce off of the Blade Dance damage. It doesn't do that anymore, but it isn't really necessary. This is still a great talent. Elun's Wrath makes it to where if you hit 2 people with a single Fan of Knives, the next one does more damage. And that continues on forever. So if you keep hitting 2 people and keep getting the resets, you keep getting the more damage. Level 10, no matter the build, Warden's Cage is always picked up in pro play, and I'll explain that when we get into the game, showing the pro gameplay. Level 13, the old build was Bladed Armor. Each enemy hero hit by Fan of Knives grants 5 armor, up to 20 armor, makes you really tanky, followed by Armored Assault, which again gives, if you have any armor, it increases your physical damage. And finalizing the build is Shadow Orb Huntress, which you activate it to increase your movement speed, your attack speed, and it recharges when you do physical damage, which you need to do physical damage 10 times to heroes. So if you're doing physical damage with your 4 and your 1, this is pretty much permanently on at all times. The new build, however, is a build that I like to call the one-shot or the burst assassin build. So while this build did a lot of sustained damage over the course of the fight, this build right here is the burst build. So what this does is this first thing starts out with a quest, which effectively makes it to where the more people you hit with your W, the more damage your initial part of your W does, as well as the pull damage. And that pull damage can get very, very high. Then it goes into Blade Dance, still the physical, same thing, extra damage on the Qs. Same ult right here, and it adjusts a few talents here and here, and these all change based off of the players. For example, the game I'm going to be showing will be taking Shadow Armor instead of the Chain Gang. Now, Shadow Armor makes it to where when you jump in, you get the armor. Now, the reason why I call this the one-shot or the burst build is because of this talent at level 16, which makes your really gets you the biggest power spike, one of the biggest power spikes in the game, actually. And what it does is it says that your Umbral Bind grants movement speed, which means that it's very easy to pull people with it, because instead of them moving the same speed as you, you move 25% faster than them. So if you jump on them, use your W, you're pretty much always going to be able to pull them. But then it says another thing. In addition, each time Maiev deals damage to a tethered target, Umbral Bind pulls the damage is increased to all targets by 40% up to 200%, meaning if she binds 2 people, and then immediately after her bind, she hits them with a Q, you got to remember something for a second. The Q is going to be doing an extra 50 physical damage, so you're already hitting 2 people 2 times each. That's 4 times. That means you automatically go up to 160% more damage in a second. So all you have to do is charge in with your E. You have to land your W, land 1 auto attack, and then a Q on 2 people, and you have the full increased 200% damage, which is actually 3 times your original damage. So this effectively can do upward of 1,500 damage, depending on how long the game has been going on. followed by the level 20 talent you can activate to do damage to an enemy hero, slowing them, reducing their armor, as well as recharging this when you do spell damage. The reason for this, and again this is to add to the one-shot build, when you decrease their armor, you are increasing the damage you are doing to them by 20%. Plus, you're doing damage to them. So if you charge in, and even if you hit one single person with your W, followed by an auto attack, a Q hitting 2 sets of damage here, followed by this, you fully stack your cruel chain by yourself, reducing their armor, and you can hit them for over 1,500 damage, not even including the armor reduction that they're getting. So well over 2,000 damage a lot of times, not including the amount of auto attack and Q damage you're doing already. This build right here, by level 20, allows Maiev to one-shot a single person, or if you get a good team fight where you can get a nice pull-off, you will literally kill an entire team based off of how well you do this combo. So, speaking of that, I'm going to show you guys Maiev and essentially why the pros like to pick her. To start off, when drafting Maiev, what I really recommend is she's not a solo laner. She's not someone who should be put into the solo lane because she thrives off of getting resets of her abilities. If you can see, her Q is Fan of Knives, it deals damage, and if you hit 2 people, the cooldown is reduced to 0.5 seconds, meaning you can repeatedly hit people with Fan of Knives over and over and over. Her W, you hit it, it creates these tethers on people. If you walk out of range of the tether breaks and it pulls them all the way towards Maiev. Her E, it throws out a clone of herself, and then the clone will move back to the original position of Maiev, and you can teleport to jump to where Maiev was at any point in this. The reason that pros really like Maiev is because she has one of the most effective initiations in the entire game. And I know that may sound like an overstatement, but it truly is. She can jump in from a long range and hook people and then pull them all the way back to the team, and the team can follow up with whatever they want to. And she can do this at an incredible range. Her high mobility allows her to move from lane to lane and allows her to help out multiple lanes. In case you have a solo laner in one lane and you want to help the solo laner in that lane while still being able to get back to your team in another lane. She thrives with people who have healing over time abilities like Malfurion or Stukov, who could drop a healing over time on her as she dives into the enemy team and then brings them back to your team. While she also works well with some other healers that can dive in with, just like Rhaegar for example, or Kharazim, most of the time she dives in alone, she pulls everyone back while using her trait, which makes her immune to damage and any other effects for a short time, so that she could be moving away from the enemy team while being immune to all of their effects. All of these things combined allow her to have one of the strongest engages in the game, as well as being an amazing part to a coordinated team. Now, if you're playing her in Hero League, she does still work even if it's not a coordinated team, but it can be very difficult because you're pulling people in and you're getting no value off of it. Her wave clear is also low because while she has a lot of AoE abilities, none of these get resets unless she's hitting 2 enemy heroes with her abilities, which means that just because you do have AoEs doesn't mean that it's enough to where you can actually clear a lot of waves. So I wouldn't pick her for a solo lane, I wouldn't pick her for any sort of wave clear, but if your team already has wave clear with people like Phoenix or Dahaka, she can definitely be a very strong pick. She's also great at interrupting rotations because people are afraid to stay too close to her because it only takes a little bit for her to W onto someone, get her binds, and then jump away and immediately pull them towards the team. The binds are also kind of tricky. Sometimes you want to stay near the Maiev when you get a bind on you so it doesn't pull you back and stun you. But at the same time, if you move towards her, you might be moving towards the enemy team. So she kind of puts you into an impossible situation. And that's why a lot of times people against Maiev will try to do cleanses. As you can see, he didn't want to leave because he would have just gotten pulled back. But if you went towards her, he would have gone towards the team. So either way, she was able to take out Genji during rotation, which is again why I said not only is she great for rotations like what she's doing, but she's great at interrupting rotations as well. She's amazing at flanking, and you can see a lot of times she'll be walking up towards the sides so that she can get some sort of a flank off, because not only can you flank from the side and pull people around, but you can also get away safely by simply using your blink. She's not that great for peeling for her team, unlike many tanks. While yes, you can tether, you would have to move towards the enemy team to pull them away from your team, or just pull them in a different direction, but it's very difficult, as a lot of times your binds are going to be pulling them towards your team more than anything else. I'm going to speed up just a little bit. Again, she does camps, but it's not that fast. I mean, she only has her ability up every 4 seconds if you're not getting resets, and the damage is not too high without getting any sort of resets. It's only 185. Her auto attacks do about the same. But you can definitely see she jumps in a lot just to see if she can scare off the enemies, but you'll see a lot of times as this game goes on that this her initiate is incredibly scary. One thing that's often done if you do need the wave clear is you can send in your E, and as it's about to return, it'll do the damage going up, it'll do the damage going back, and then you could just jump to it right at the end so you're up in the range to where you can still get your auto attack, followed by your Q, followed by the damage from your Umbral Bind still does an extra cleave attack. So if you auto attack then do a W immediately after your auto attack, it will still do both of the damage and it resets your auto attack timer. As you can see, she did a good chunk of damage right there. The build that she's currently going is the one-shot build, as I explained. She's currently stacking this quest, which is very difficult to stack against a team that knows what they're doing. Blade Dance is, again, for that extra physical damage. It makes it to where your level 16 adds up much faster. Level 7, going to go with that extra spell damage as well. And again, her clear speed is nowhere near the speed of Phoenix's clear speed, but she can still help speed it up a little bit. And you can see a lot of what Maiev is doing is simply just roaming from lane to lane, doing her best, trying to get as much value in rotations whenever she can. And you can see her cleave is also something that's a little tricky too. So what happens is if you cleave, even at a wall, you can sometimes tag people that are within the range of the cleave, because a cleave, essentially, she swipes in front of her, and anything that her W or her auto attack range would hit is going to hit all the heroes in that area. So if you see in this situation, see how far she is from this Ragnaros right now? She jumps in by using her E. The Ragnaros knows he needs to get out, so he gets on the other side, and she simply uses her W on the wall, which is just enough to where it gets in range of the Ragnaros. Followed by Malfurion quickly does a root because he knows that Ragnaros is about to get pulled in. The root pulls, the root stun, or sorry, the bind pulls, the root stuns, and they finish off Ragnaros. Wouldn't you love to have this Maiev on your team? I just sometimes I wish. I watch some of these pro games, and I wish I had some of these pros in my Hero League games more often. I get them here and there, but not always. She can escape most of these situations, and sometimes it's not great to pull in a Maiev because she can simply bind you and then jump out. So it's hard to kill her, but at the same time, you trying to kill her can lead to your own death. I'm going to fast forward a little bit. And again, when I said that she's great at roaming, I was not kidding. She is an amazing roaming hero. She can move from lane to lane very easily. And a lot of times you just want to kind of wait. You want to anchor bushes. You want to make sure that if the enemies show up, you can jump on them. Now, both of these pro teams are, this is Team Freedom versus Team Octalysis. And both of these are top-tier North America teams. They are not like, again, this isn't your average team league group. These are actual teams that are pro players. I'm not showing one team that doesn't know what they're doing versus a pro team. These are both pro teams. And they both know what they're doing. So a lot of times, like, you might see times where if you were playing Maiev, you're like, oh, I would have been able to get a pull there. The enemies know what they're doing. They've played against Maiev a lot. This was not early in her patch. This is actually one of the most recent games that she's been played in for North America HGC. And this is after all of her balance patches where she's been nerfed numerous times. So again, this is what I love Maiev for, is to be able to jump over these walls and quickly go from top lane or bottom lane at any point in the game by just using her E to get around. It's a pretty low cooldown, 10 seconds. And she's amazing on this map. Some of the maps that I like Maiev on is Braxis because of the ability to move from lane to lane very quickly. I like her on Tomb of the Spider Queen because on Tomb of the Spider Queen, she can, again, there's all these big walls in between each of the areas, and you can just jump in between the walls very quickly, as well as I like Dragonshire. There's still the walls inside the areas, and this situation here is something that I explained in another video, is when you're weak, act like you're strong. You saw Genji was positioning here to maybe scare them off from the camp. They knew because Genji wouldn't have shown himself if they actually did have a strong fight here. They would have just gone in. But with Genji showing himself, they knew that they didn't have the capabilities because Genji was trying to act strong when his team was actually weak. And what I mean weak is not necessarily bad. They just weren't actually there at the time. Now at level 10, we're going to see this game get interesting with Warden's Cage. Warden's Cage summons a circle of Wardens that if you walk into, they push them into the middle and then they disappear. And the benefit of Warden's Cage is once you lock people in, and again, when I said that Maiev has one of the most efficient initiations in the game, Warden's Cage adds to this. You can jump in with your E, you can pull them with your W, then you can use your R to trigger the Umbral Bind that locks them all in there on your own side. And once they're pulled on their own side, now they need to leave on the other side, and they're going to be killed anyways. So it makes it a very, very powerful combo. Not only can she one-shot people with the level 16 talents, but she can also be just a force to be reckoned with by the amount of CC and disruption that she adds to the team. I'm going to speed through the camps. We don't really care about that. And you can see a quick bind. The team wasn't there to follow up, so that's fine. She's moving along with her quest. It's going to take a little while to get the quest done because the damage can go up to, I think quite a few more than that. Can't remember the exact number. It goes up to 75 bonus damage, which I think is 5 or 6 procs. So she's getting close. Okay. If you hear the sounds going, the team is using special pings on certain people, which don't appear on the map, but they do make noise. Team Freedom uses a lot of pings when they're communicating with each other, as well as they still use voice chat. I think this is their way of communicating with each other while keeping their voice chat kind of clean. When I said that she was great at flanking, her and Murden are going to go for a really good flank right here. As you can see, their minions are going to be pushing up this direction. And one other thing that I wanted to talk about was, this has nothing to do with Maiev, but just was something kind of interesting. The pros don't tend to get Planet Cracker, but Team Freedom decided to go with Planet Cracker on Phoenix. And they did it so that when Ragnaros uses his trait to deal with the wave, Planet Cracker could just smash through the health of this. Look how fast that Planet Cracker burns through this Ragnaros before the wave even gets up to it. I just thought that was interesting, figured it could be added. You can see this is essentially what I was saying with the ult. She can jump in with her E, she can use the ult, she can use her W to pull them back, and now her ult's also going to keep pulling them back in over and over and over. It's just a really nice combo. If the Murden stayed with her during that Junkrat definitely would have been dead. They can clear up the fort for free, as the dive into the back line makes it to where the enemies didn't want to continue fighting that. We'll speed up just a little bit. Again, Team Freedom likes their pings. Every team finds their own way to go around this. We see a nice pull in here. Hits the Diablo, followed by a tongue, which will hit the Diablo as well. Followed by an isolation, which will kill off the Diablo. Saved by a really nice palm, by the way. Then we go on. We get a nice bind. Pulling in the Karazim as well as the Ragnaros. Had to use some ults to get out of that. Which is kind of nice. If you saw, there was several ults used by Team Octalysis, while Team Freedom didn't really have to use any of their ults. Just because of some basic abilities. 12-second cooldown, burn like 3 ults. Right here, this Junkrat was doing something kind of interesting. He was revealing these areas using his Q, but at the same time, There could be a variety of people sitting in this bush, so Maiev decides to go the safe route and reveal the bush first with her Q instead of just going in and trying to kill this Junkrat. One thing to know about Maiev is jumping in with your E removes your escape. So if you're jumping in and your team's not following, you've essentially already died and lost the team fight. So you can see there's a lot of times where she could jump on Junkrat right here, but if her team's not there to go with her, it's just going to be wasted. You need to make sure that your team's already going into a fight before you go with your combo. Level 13, we can see the armor was picked up. This allows it to where she can blink in, she can gain armor, and then she could jump back, get the bonus armor, and it's harder for the enemy team to take her out after she jumps in. You can see her getting these resets on her Q every time. Q, reset, reset, reset. She got a lot of damage off on that fight. She used her trait to avoid the damage from Diablo. And she was able to take out Junkrat. She jumps in. Fortunately gets on the other side of the wall. Just gets as much value as she can. Getting as many Qs off. Loses the resets. She does end up dying. We're going to fast forward through her death. You can see how many kills they got on their team, which still was a very valuable trade for their team. They got the front walls down at bottom, as well as a couple kills. Only lost one person. I don't think his goal was to jump on the other side of that wall. Sometimes the team can go and clear the wall very quickly, but I don't think that they had the means to do that. I'm going to just fast forward a little bit. They're going to try to get up to 16 soon. We've got, again, that same Alt-W combo, which is just bouncing people around, pulling them around. She gets the reset. She ends up waking him up a little too early, but the revive made it to where he still got stuck in place. And again, if you turn off your E too early, then it's hard to catch up with people because she doesn't have extra movement speed until her level 16 talent. And her level 16 talent only gives her movement speed when she lands a bind. Now, she has the level 16 talent, and I want to show you a few things when she does end up landing it on people. You can see the amount of damage she does ends up being quite a lot of damage. So again, the initiate went off of her terms, but you can watch this pull right there. I mean, she didn't end up getting the pull, but you'll see it starts adding up. And just her high mobility of being able to get from area to area over and over. The slow is going to allow her to get her W off. Now watch this damage. 400 damage. That was only from a single attack of her W. That was the 40% increased damage. Now, we're going to see this go all the way up to the 200% in this game. She's staying off to the side in case she wants to jump through this direction and pull someone towards the team. This time she's going to destroy the wall. In case she wants to dive in, she'll have an escape. Their team is pinging for a variety of targets right now. They're probably calling it out in voice chat as well. Dahaka's coming in at the moment. They're going to wait until Dahaka can get there. And then they're going to jump in. Actually, looks like Ragnaros is going to prevent that. They're likely going to go for a boss bait in the next little bit, but we will see what they end up doing. In between objectives on this map, you tend to want to get camps, as well as it's nice to get camps during the objectives while you're having a stalemate between the enemies. Again, she's going off to the side in case she wants to flank. Now, in this fight, you never want to be this clustered against a Maiev. This is going to be a really rough fight for the enemies, and the reason why is because you got to remember, she's getting resets every time that she gets her Q off. And every time that she gets her Q off, it's doing bonus physical damage. It's doing bonus magic damage. It's already doing 300 damage every hit. Every half a second, she's going to be landing a Fan of Knives for well over 500 damage. Okay? And followed by that, if she lands her bind on even 2 people, those two people could possibly take a lot of damage. So you never want to cluster against a Maiev. And this is what ends up happening. She lands a W on numerous people. She uses her ult so that if they try to get away from her, they get bounced back. Or if they follow her, they get bounced back. She lands her Q on 4 people here. Followed by the W. Does a small little bit of damage right there because she only landed it on one person. Or not one person, but only one proc of her bonus damage. But she keeps getting these resets. She's going back in again. Lands W on every single person on the enemy team. Followed by a Q, which hits everyone for the extra damage from her Q, as well as the physical damage. Meaning, her Umbral Bind is 100% stacked up. She's going to do 3 times the amount of damage to everyone who's left, as long as she can get away from them fast enough. Meaning, if they leave, all of these that are low health are dead. Boom, dead. 1,500 damage to 3 people. 1,500 damage. Let's go back. Once again, we're going to speed through the first half of this fight. It's the second half. She catches all of them with her W. She does a Q, which triggers her entire amount of damage because she has to hit everything 5 times, or she has to hit a tethered target 5 times. It could be any of the tethered targets. She hit all of them twice, meaning that she hit them effectively 8 procs off of this, but it goes up to only 200% more damage. First, we see Genji try to leave right there. He does a dash away, 1,500 damage. Then we see Junkrat try to leave, 1,500 damage. We see Ragnaros try to leave, 1,500 damage. Followed by 1,500 damage to Karazim. All of them dead. She finishes off the last one with just a quick Q in the bush. This is why Maiev is picked. She can get easy rotational kills in the early game, and late game it only takes one good team fight for her to do an incredible amount of damage, taking out everyone in this one-shot build. They then take this game after defeating the entire enemy team in 2 really good team fights, both effectively done by Maiev. And that is why the pros play Maiev. She's an amazing hero. She's very difficult in uncoordinated teams, but if you're in a coordinated team, she has one of the strongest engages, initiates, whatever you want to call it, in the game, as well as she has an amazing amount of damage in team fights. Thank you so much for watching. Feel free to subscribe, and if you want to see more videos like this, just let me know.